Let's bring you this story. The latest report by the Bureau of Economic Research suggests that municipalities are failing to provide infrastructure and basic services. These services would allow households a decent standard of living, which would eventually attract investment and create jobs. Well, we do know, of course, that many municipalities are in trouble. But what else has come out of this research? Let's speak now to researcher Helanya Fourie to really give us a little bit more insight to this. Helanya, good afternoon. Welcome to the Midday View. Thank you very much for joining us here on the Midday View on eNCA. I guess, it's not news that we've got municipalities who are battling to deliver services, but in your latest research, things have gotten worse, or is there a light a little bit at the end of the tunnel?
I wish I could say there was, Dan. Thanks for the invitation and for the interest in our work. I don't think you need a 30-page economic report to realize that we have big problems in terms of service delivery in the country. I think what our report contributes is it allows one to sort of take a step back and get a macro view on the challenges that we are seeing. Often media articles zoom in on specific towns and explain the terrible state of affairs in specific areas. But we want to highlight the fact that the lack of service delivery and the poor level of service delivery in many of our local municipalities has broader economic spin-offs. It leads to slower economic development. It makes it more difficult for South Africa to address its unemployment problem. It's certainly one of our biggest constraints on growth.
Yeah.
So our report,
I just wanted to come to your report. What are these things that are really going south because of the lack of proper performance and service delivery? If you could share with us that, and then we'll come to why is that. But let's start there first. What are these things that are going south?
Yeah, so I think we see that many households really just simply don't have access to the right services. And from an economic perspective, we see very little investment. So you see the level of capital investment by municipalities in 2019, for instance, was at the same rate as in 2010. So there's been no progress in terms of investing in new infrastructure and new capital. This sort of creates a vicious cycle in the sense that if areas don't have the right services in place, firms are less inclined to invest, which in turn makes it more difficult to create jobs, which impoverishes the communities, which in turn makes it more difficult for people to pay their municipal rates and taxes, which has a negative impact on municipal finances. And in this way, this vicious cycle just continues.
Okay. So what are the reasons? Why are municipalities failing? Politics aside, you need some skills, I guess, to run a municipality.
Yeah, so when we started out writing the report, I was under the impression that the solution is actually quite simple. Appoint the right people for the job and make sure that they do their job well. In digging a bit deeper and speaking with also other experts in the field, we realized that the problems are a little bit more complex. It's certainly made more difficult by quite a cumbersome supply chain management process that often focuses more on minutiae and details rather than making sure that the right company or the right contractors are appointed for a job. Our auditing process, which is, of course, vital to curb corruption, unfortunately doesn't seem to be achieving this objective. In fact, municipalities spend so much energy focusing on trying to get a clean audit outcome, and very few of them actually do. But at the same time, we don't see any improvements in municipal performance. So there's so much energy and time spent on administrative issues that the bigger picture of actual service delivery almost falls by the wayside. You mentioned a lack of skills. That's also something that we identify. A high vacancy rate many municipalities are characterized by high vacancy rates. And I think the lack of skills accompanied by the high vacancy rates have terrible implications across the board. Yeah, it impacts on, to give a simple example, if you have people writing a tender specification, but the people who are writing it aren't, for instance, technical experts or engineers, the specs that go out to the market are poorly formulated, the tender offers that you receive are perhaps not well suited to the project, the wrong people are appointed to execute the project, and I mean, the cycle just continues.
Very complex and very interesting report. And of course, the time that is coming out ahead of the November 1 election, it looks like it's going to be a long road to fix our ailing municipalities, which are very important to deliver services to various communities. Thank you very much for your time. That's Helanya Fourie, a researcher there with the Bureau of Economic Research, having come out with a new report that looks at the macro impact of failing municipalities. It is huge. It is big. It's an emergency, in fact. The lack of service delivery in this country is an emergency.